How can Europe learn from research in Zambia? Our two fellow scientists, ZUZANA and LENKA, spent 3 weeks in Zambia, Africa, researching climate change. Let's look at the details in a series of short videos with their engaging story. How can Europe learn from research in Zambia?
The regions are highly connected and we are living in a highly globalized world. So first of all, what's happening in Zambia is highly relevant for people living in Europe, in the US, in China, elsewhere, because we can learn a lot out of it. And I would say that what is really common, because this is like the substance of human nature, is that if we want to tackle climate change, so we need to start with behavioral change. And it really doesn't matter whether we are studying behavioral change aspects in Europe or US or in Zambia, for instance, because the causes are pretty much the same and the solutions as well. Because if we want from someone to change their behavior, so we need to explain properly why. What's the solution? Why we should change our behavior and what are the benefits out of it? Because if we are not seeing, any positive outcome out of our behavioral change, so what would be our motivation then, right? And I think that this is something that's very much shown in this research in Zambia, because majority of the work of development NGOs is really focused on some sort of trainings, teaching people how to better cultivate some crops, or how to change their hygiene, how to change their nutrition. But and we can see that these efforts very often are failing, just simply because this new knowledge or these new technologies are not very well communicated. And I think that this really relates to how we should communicate the needed behavioral change in terms of climate change as well. Because if we are not explaining why it is needed, what's going to be the negative and the positive outcome if this change is not happening.
One another thing that we can learn from our research in Zambia that is very applicable in Europe is that a lot of things that we need to change are dependent on how our society, our economy and our policy making is set up. And people might have the motivation to do some changes individually, but of course they are dependent on the larger system around them. So, for instance, in Zambia, people might be motivated to, let's say, use a different type of livelihood or use a different type of transport, but they might not be able to because there might be barriers in terms of availability, there might not be the infrastructure that they need for such change. Or maybe they can be limited by things like a political system or the way how decisions are made on the community level. So we can see that there are a lot of structural barriers, structural issues, and we can see the effect of these issues in Europe as well. It might be they're different type or different specificities, but in general, the issue with systems barriers is the same.